Hello, Magic players and collectors. Welcome back to the Land Library. I'm your librarian, and in this episode of Latest Loadout, I'm covering the next backlog set, Murders at Karlov Manor. This set released February 9th of 2024 and is themed around the murder mystery genre, leaning in by using things like the Clue artifact subtype a lot and introducing the enchantment subtype of Case. It leans in so much to the murder mystery theme that they even partnered with Clue to release a special Universes Beyond set on February 23rd of 2024, which I will be including in this video as it is like an annex set for Murders at Karlov Manor. Both of these sets also take place on the Ravnica plane. As per usual, the first on the list of returning lands is the basic. Both the main set and the clue set have their own sets of basics. There's 2 regular prints and a full art print for the main set, and then 4 regular prints for the clue set, although the clue set is reprinting old arts. And actually, the rest of the returning lands are not in the main set. That's right. Murders at Karlov Manor printed only new lands outside of those basics. The Commander set and the Clue set, on the other hand, reprinted plenty of lands. And that being said, almost all of those lands will be in the Rapid Fire. The Commander set has not even a single land with new art, and the Clue set has just a single cycle of like all 10 dual colors with new art, which is the Shock lands, and is giving them all amazing borderless arts. These shock lands are lands that come in tapped, but you can pay 2 life to have them come in untapped instead, and otherwise are just like dual colors, they tap for their colors. These lands are Blood Crypt, Breeding Pool, Godless Shrine, Hollowed Fountain, Overgrown Tomb, Sacred Foundry, Steam Vents, Stomping Grounds, Temple Garden, and Watery Grave. And actually, there is one other land before the Rapid Fire section. I know I said there wasn't anything else in the main set, which is still kind of true, because this is Field of the Dead getting this special guest treatment. And while special guests can be pulled in packs, they are technically, not part of the set. They're still part of special guests. And this is actually the first land that got a special guest print, which is pretty cool. This interesting land comes in tapped, can tap for a colorless, but in addition, it creates a 2/2 zombie creature token every time it or another land enters the battlefield under your control, as long as you have 7 differently named lands in play. And, as a special guest, this doesn't actually bring it back into standard, it just is a cool print. And that means the rest are, of course, reprints with nothing new but the set symbol, which includes Access Tunnel, Ash Barrens, Azorius Chancery, Azorius Guildgate, Bojuka Bog, Boros Garrison, Boros Guildgate, Canopy Vista, Castle Arvindale, Choked Estuary, Cinder Glade, Command Tower, Darkwater Catacombs, Dimmer Aqueduct, Dimmer Guildgate, Drownyard Temple, Exotic Orchard, Fetid Pools, Fortified Village, Fury Calm Snarl, Game Trail, Golgari Rot Farm, Golgari Guildgate, Gruul Turf, Gruul Guildgate, Hostile Desert, Irrigated Farmland, Izzet Boilerworks, Izzet Guildgate, Jungle Shrine, Kessig Wolf Run, Keep, Croson Verge, Labyrinth of Scophos, Lonely Sandbar, Mossfire Valley, Mosswart Bridge, Myriad Landscape, Mystic Sanctuary, Needle Spires, Orzhov Basilica, Orzhov Guildgate, Path of Ancestry, Port of Carfell, Prairie Stream, Rakdos Carnarium, Rakdos Guildgate, Reliquary Tower, River of Tears, Rogue's Passage, Sacred Peaks, Scattered Groves, Scavenger Grounds, Seaside Citadel, Secluded Steppe, Selesnya Sanctuary, Selesnya Guildgate, Sheltered Thicket, Shrine of the Forgotten Gods, Simic Growth Chamber, Simic Guildgate, Skycloud Expanse, Slayer's Stronghold, Spire of Industry, Sungrass Prairie, Sunhome Fortress of the Legion, Sunken Hollow, Tainted Isle, Temple of Abandon, Temple of Enlightenment, Temple of Mystery, Temple of Plenty, Temple of the False God, Temple of Triumph, Thriving Bluff, Thriving Grove, Thriving Heath, Thriving Isle, Thriving Moor, Throne of the High City, Tocasia's Dig Site, Tranquil Thicket, War Room, and Zoetic Cavern. There's quite a few new lands in this set, but most of them are all tied up in just a couple of full sets of dual colors. The first of which are the Surveil lands, which have the basic land types, come in tapped, and Surveil 1 when played. These include Commercial District, Elegant Parlor, Hedge Maze, Lush Portico, Meticulous Archive, Raucous Theater, Shadowy Backstreet, Thundering Falls, Undercity Sewers, and Underground Mortuary. These also all come in borderless art versions, which look super nice, and all have a little bit of a theme together. They have what I believe is more or less magic police tape, like wardening off a crime scene. Now, next up is the other set of all 10 dual colors from the clue set. These are the clue rooms, and all enter tapped can tap for either of their colors, and for 4 generic, tap to investigate. These are the ballroom, the billiard room, the conservatory, the dining room, the hall, the kitchen, the library, the lounge, the secret passage, and the study. These feature the art of the rooms from, like, the Clue board game, and interestingly, only come in borderless. And the rest are all individual lands, starting off with Branch of Vitugazi. This is an odd land that has Disguise 3, which means for 3 generic mana, it can be placed down as a typeless, colorless 2/2 creature with Ward 2, and it can be flipped face up for its disguise cost, which was that 3 from it being Disguise 3. But this does come with the extra upside of when it gets flipped up from being disguised, it creates 2 mana of any color but only 1 color, and that mana lasts until the end of the turn instead of just the end of the current phase. Otherwise, it just taps for a colorless, and if you just play it directly as a land, it comes in untapped. Next up is Escape Tunnel. This land can't actually make any of its own mana, and instead can tap and sack to either look through your library for a basic land card and put it in play tapped, or make a creature with power 2 or less unblockable for the turn. This is basically just a wild card fetch land, or Rogue's Passage, but a little weaker, wrapped up into 1 card. Then we get to Public Thoroughfare, which comes in tapped, but also requires you to tap a land or artifact you control, or else it destroys itself after being played. And then it can just tap for a mana of any color. And the final new land is Scene of the Crime. This is an artifact land with the subtype of Clue, and since Clue is a subtype of artifacts and not lands, this is the only Clue land that's ever been printed, at least so far. But Scene of the Crime comes in tapped, and can tap for a colorless, or you can tap to also tap a creature you control to make a mana of any color. And of course, it has the inherent Clue ability of paying 2 mana and then sacrificing it to draw a card. Starting off with the weakest of the new cards, the Clue Rooms are kind of interesting but pretty useless. They're universes beyond cards, so they're not standard or even like modern legal, leaving them basically just for Commander or from the Clue game that they're coming from. And although they're a consistent generator of clues for Commander decks that want clues and or artifacts, that effective 5 mana per clue is rough, and lots of other cards can do it much better or much cheaper. Even just another land from this set, Scene of the Crime, is like a better clue support because it just is a clue. Granted, it's only one, it can't keep making more, but being able to just play a clue just for your land for turn is so much cheaper, and it can still make mana while still being a clue. It's not like the most efficient at making colored mana, but it still is a decent option for clue and artifact decks. Branch of Vitugazi is also just not very good. Disguise is a weird thing to have on a land because it removes its inherent land protections, and the payoff for this one especially isn't even really worth it. 6 mana to disguise and flip it just to get 2 mana? Like, mana that lasts phases is technically better than mana that doesn't, but the actual use cases for it are pretty rare, since you can just tap lands for mana in any phase you need it anyways. The only really relevant instances are something like an Armageddon being played and you just not having land anymore. So paying 6 mana to get 2 mana? Not a great trade. And without that disguise, it's basically just a wastes, but not basic, so less interactable. And if you're worse than a wastes, like, what are you doing? Public Thoroughfare, on the other hand, is pretty good, but just a little too slow to be, like, competitive. It can just tap for any color with no restrictions or extra payments, which is a solid ability, and coming in tapped is a little less than ideal, but not, like, that big of a deal. But it having to tap another land slash artifact is basically giving it a pseudo casting cost of 1, which just is definitely too slow for competitive. It's definitely a lot better in Commander, since it being slow is not as big of an issue, and multicolored decks that can take advantage of its any color are much more commonly played in Commander. But it's still pretty good for a common, especially. Escape Tunnel is in a bit of a similar place. Searching for any basic, but playing it tapped is good but slow. And its other ability is a bit less useful under most circumstances, unless you're trying to sneak in something small to trigger an effect or gain speed, which wasn't even a thing yet when the set came out, but it is now, so it can help with that. It just doesn't do much. Its big problem is also that you can only do it once, so even if you are trying to sneak something in or gain speed, you only get to do it once, and it can put you at a mana disadvantage to use it that way, because now you're missing out on a land that can make mana. And its other problem is that it can't make its own mana. So, like, despite being a decent combo piece for certain decks, it's kind of the only thing it can be, is a combo piece. And that finally gets us to the big ones, the Surveil lands. These are crazy good dual colors. Having basic land types is huge, and their only real downside is coming in tapped. But throw down like a Spelunking, and now you've got true duels that surveil when played. Even without Spelunking, they're still like pretty much on the same level as true duels. They're just as powerful, searchable, and interactable. They just aren't as fast, but they do still give you a completely free surveil. For standard, this is only like a 2 out of 5. It does have some crazy heavy hitters, which is the surveil lands, but that's kind of it. The rest of the new lands are like okay at best in standard, and are just much better outside of standard. For commander, like a 4 out of 5. Like I just said, the lands in this one are just better outside of standard, such as in Commander, Escape Tunnel, Public Thoroughfare, and all of the like clues support is just better in Commander. This set doesn't really introduce anything huge, but it offers a lot of good smaller support. For the theme, 5 out of 5. The lands in this set go together really well. Lots of city streets and buildings and inside of buildings, and it really does just feel like it's an investigation of a mystery that's journeying through the entire city. For art, this is like a 6 out of 10. There's a lot of really great art in this set and tons of borderless prints, but there's not any other special prints like extended arts or showcases. Like, even the special guest is still a borderless. And there's that severe lack of new art on old prints. We only got the basics, but not all of the basics, and the shock lands, and I guess still that special guest. But there's just like no new art at all in the commander set. So I can't give this like full points, even though the art that is there is great. Overall, this is a 17 out of 25, a great showing from a well-themed set. Has really nice art, it has some pretty good cards, but it's missing a few things, and altogether is a pretty good set for lands, especially if you like collecting borderless. If you've made it this far in the video, please drop a like for turn, and subscribe for more land-filled content. If I missed anything, got anything wrong, or you just have questions, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next backlog set when I go over Ravnica Remastered.